Terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country.
In what insiders are calling an unprecedented rage spiral, President Donald Trump has completely lost his composure following a brutally hilarious takedown of his press secretary Caroline Levitt by late-night host Jimmy Kimmel. Sources close to the administration report that the president was throwing things and screaming at staffers after watching the segment that left audiences across America howling with laughter and the Trump team scrambling for damage control. "I've never seen him this angry," whispered one White House insider who requested anonymity for fear of reprisal. He was literally shaking with rage, his face redder than usual, demanding someone fix this immediately, while his security detail exchanged worried glances. It was absolute chaos. The television ambush that triggered this explosive meltdown focused on Levitt's increasingly desperate attempts to defend a series of widely criticized White House policies and presidential statements that have left even seasoned political observers scratching their heads in bewilderment. Trump couldn't believe what he was seeing, revealed another source with direct knowledge of the situation. He was pacing around the residence, red-faced and shouting about unfair treatment and fake news for hours afterward. Several staffers were reportedly in tears, and at least 2 are considering resignation after witnessing the frightening display of presidential fury. And the fighting display of presidential fury. Things escalated when Kimmel dared Trump to debate him on live TV, saying, "If he's so tough, let's settle this like men, one-on-one, no teleprompters, just me, him, and a microphone." Naturally, Trump ignored the challenge, but continued firing back online, calling Kimmel desperate for relevance. Will this ever end? No chance. In the world of celebrity feuds, few have been as entertaining or as contentious as the ongoing saga between late-night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel and former President Donald Trump. This rivalry has unfolded over several years, marked by sharp wit, biting jabs, and a sprinkling of political tension that keeps audiences on the edge of their seats. Let's delve into the details of this juicy feud, exploring its origins, highlights, and the latest developments. The comedy assassination began innocently enough as part of Kimmel's regular monologue, but quickly escalated into what media critics are calling the most savage takedown of a press secretary since Sean Spicer's Bush's incident. Kimmel didn't hold back, comparing Trump's administration to a confederacy of Junes and mercilessly mocking Levitt's increasingly desperate attempts to make sense of her boss's often incoherent policies. "Dollars to donuts. Caroline Levitt couldn't tell you anything about the European Parliament," Kimmel quipped before playing a clip of the press secretary making what many considered an embarrassing diplomatic gaffe regarding France and the Statue of Liberty. The clip showed Levitt responding to a question about a French European Parliament member's criticism of America with startling confidence. "My advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now, so they should be very grateful to our great country." The audience erupted as Kimmel responded with perfect comic timing. What an embarrassment for St. Anselm's College in New Hampshire and its political institute. "This is a spokesperson for the President of the United States, and she said that with such incredible certitude and snark. Better thank us, France, or you'd be speaking German, H." But the comedy assassin was just warming up. The segment continued with a masterfully edited montage of Levitt's most painful press briefing moments, highlighting her impossible job of defending what many view as indefensible positions. In one particularly cringeworthy exchange about assistance programs potentially affected by administration policies, Levitt was shown deflecting reporters' questions about the low-income home energy assistance program. In 2019, with visible frustration, a new level. So you're asking a hypothetical based on programs that you can't even identify. It was largely seen as a publicity stunt. The invitation was particularly Kimmel. Trump never did show up. The woman Kimmel's offer was making a signal that he was willing to take the high road. I know we shouldn't enjoy the fact that we have a confederacy of dunes running this country, as the 2020 election approached, I'm enjoying it ramped up his commentary. Never one to take criticism lying down. Trump responded with his characteristic and holding launching into an extended social media tirade that once again lashed out, claiming Kimmel was the former president fired off a series of increasingly agitated from mere jokes into calling the comedian unfunny, commentary war, and a tool with both sides using humor to engage. We are not going to sit back and take it, Trump raged in one particularly unhinged post that has already been shared over 1,000,000 times. Our leaders on the right are going to stand up for what's right, and we cannot allow Elon Musk and a small group of people to secretly, behind closed doors, take away our privacy, take away our dollars, take away everything we have. We are going to fight this fight. I am going to stand with you in this fight, and we will win. The bizarre reference to Elon Musk left many followers confused, as the tech billionaire had no apparent connection to Kimmel's comedy segment. Political analysts suggest this may be evidence of Trump's growing inability to separate his various perceived enemies into coherent categories. He's thrown Musk under the bus now, too, noted one political commentator. This is classic Trump. When he's cornered, he lashes out in all directions, even at potential allies. It's political friendly fire at its most chaotic.
Okay, yeah, I think you're
Sources
healthy, you're a good
inside the White
candidate.
House
I was
revealed that Trump
all right,
was
well, let's go.
particularly
And he said,
upset about
well,
how the
no,
comedy
this is not-
segment
this is not
portrayed his
happening
administration as
Now, I
chaotic
had,
and
like, a night
unprepared.
of not
He
sleeping,
hates being
worrying
laughed
about
at more
this,
than anything,
dreading-
confided one staffer who requested anonymity.
and now
And Kimmel
it's
made him look
over,
like a
and
complete
I've
joke.
got
The president was
bags packed. I go out
especially
front of the
furious
place,
about the
and I
audience's
call an
reaction.
Uber, and
All
this
that
kid
laughter
shows up.
cut him deeper
He's
than
driving
any
the car. He's
criticism
about
ever could.
22 years old.
At the
He's from
center of this
Mexico.
political
And here's-
firestorm stands Caroline Levitt, the press secretary tasked with what many consider the most thankless job in Washington, making sense of Trump's often contradictory and inflammatory statements. Her job description was simple enough on paper, quipped one political analyst with decades of Washington experience. Take every bizarre thing Trump says and twist it into something that vaguely resembles reality. But let's be honest, how can you spin a disaster into something remotely presentable? Caroline is trying to sell ice to Eskimos, except instead of ice, she's trying to sell them a pile of flaming garbage. Since taking the podium, Levitt has consistently attempted to project an air of professionalism while defending increasingly difficult positions, including Trump's controversial comments about Canada potentially becoming our cherished 51st state, and claims about tens of millions of deceased people receiving fraudulent Social Security payments. President Trump has directed Elon Musk and the Doge team to identify fraud at the Social Security Administration, Levitt stated with a straight face during one briefing. They suspect that there are tens of millions of deceased people who are receiving fraudulent Social Security payments. When pressed for evidence or details about this extraordinary claim, Levitt simply doubled down, accusing reporters of not caring about taxpayer money or fiscal responsibility. During another particularly uncomfortable briefing, Levitt insisted everything President Trump is doing is within his executive authority. He is acting within the bounds of the law. All of his actions are constitutional, and our White House and the entire administration are prepared to fight back against this resistance. Don't bet against President Trump. I think his epic return to the Oval Office proves that he is going to win against this weaponization of our justice system. This unwavering defense of her boss has made her a perfect target for comedians like Kimmel, who see her attempts to normalize the administration's chaotic approach as comedy gold, but has also placed her in an increasingly precarious position within the administration. As sources suggest, Trump is now questioning her effectiveness as his public defender. He was screaming about how she's not fighting back hard enough and looking weak on camera, and revealed one insider present during Trump's post-Kimmel meltdown. There's serious talk about her being replaced, even though this whole situation isn't really her fault. She's just the messenger, but you know how Trump treats messengers who bring bad news. What made Kimmel's takedown particularly effective was his surgical precision. Rather than simply mocking Trump directly, as many comedians do, he focused on exposing the absurdity of having to defend such controversial positions in the first place. The comedian compared Trump's leadership style to an unusual billiard strategy, referencing House Speaker Mike Johnson's bizarre pool metaphor. What President Trump is doing, I think of it sort of like when you're playing billiards and you're playing pool, right? You go on the table and the balls are racked, right? And you hit it as hard as you can. This is many people's strategy in the game. You hit it as hard as you can to break up the balls on the table and send them to spread. Then you play the strategy of sinking them in the holes. That's what we're doing right now. It is a shake-up. I believe that sometimes when you shake up, it's a violent thing on the table in the game metaphor, but it always works out well in the end. To which Kimmel deadpanned, no, it doesn't always work out. The audience erupted in laughter as he continued. These guys are working so hard to tell us that this disaster we're watching unfold before our very eyes is part of the plan. It's all just part of the plan. Media analysts note that Kimmel has discovered Trump's greatest weakness, the growing gap between the administration's messaging and observable reality. What makes this so devastating is that Kimmel isn't even adding much commentary, explained one media professor specializing in political communication. He's largely just showing clips of what they're actually saying and letting the absurdity speak for itself. That's why Trump is so furious. When your own words become the joke, you can't claim it's fake news. The segment continued with a brutally edited montage of Levitt's most awkward moments at the podium, including her fumbling response to questions about a controversial document leak. When asked if sensitive military documents were classified, Levitt responded, "I would characterize this messaging thread as a policy discussion, a sensitive policy discussion, surely amongst high-level cabinet officials and senior staff." The reporter pressed, "But the president said that Pete said none of this was classified. So given the president has seen it now, and given the president understands that significant military plans are deemed classified as secret, how does the president view none of this, which details times and weapons and more, as being not classified?" Levitt's frustrated response, "I've already been asked and answered this question. The president's thoughts on this remain the same today as they were yesterday," drew howls of laughter when Kimmel simply raised his eyebrows at the camera and said nothing, letting the moment speak for itself. As the Kimmel clip went viral, amassing over 20 million views across social media platforms within hours, the White House press office launched into full crisis management mode. Sources report that an emergency meeting was called at 6 a.m., with staffers working around the clock to craft a response strategy. "They're absolutely panicking," revealed one Republican strategist with connections to the administration. "This is exactly the kind of story they don't want dominating the news cycle. It makes the whole operation look incompetent and worse, ridiculous. Being feared is one thing, but being laughed at is political poison." The initial strategy appears to be attacking Kimmel personally, with several administration-friendly commentators questioning his patriotism and suggesting he's part of a coordinated effort to undermine the presidency. "They're trying to make this about Kimmel versus America, not Kimmel versus Trump," explained the strategist. But that's going to be a hard sell when so many Americans are sharing the clip and saying, "Finally, someone is pointing out how absurd this all is." Meanwhile, Levitt herself has maintained a disciplined silence about the incident, continuing to appear at briefings with her characteristic intensity. However, body language experts note that she appears more tense than usual, with one commenting, "Her smile doesn't reach her eyes anymore. She knows she's become the face of an administration that's increasingly viewed as a punchline." This isn't the first time Trump has erupted over comedy at his expense, but insiders say this reaction has been particularly volcanic, given the precision of Kimmel's attack and its focus on what was supposed to be one of the administration's strengths: message discipline. "Trump was screaming about firing the entire communications team," revealed one staffer who was present during the aftermath. "He kept saying, 'I thought we had professionals. These are supposed to be professionals.' It was honestly terrifying." The president's ability to laugh at himself has become legendary in Washington circles, with former staffers often recounting stories of his explosive reactions to even gentle ribbing. One former communications director noted, "Most politicians understand that being mocked comes with the territory. They learn to laugh it off, or even lean into it. Trump never developed that skill, and it's his Achilles heel." Political psychologists suggest this hypersensitivity to mockery may stem from Trump's deep-seated insecurities about being taken seriously. For someone who has spent his entire life demanding respect and recognition, being laughed at represents the ultimate rejection, explained one expert in political psychology. It triggers a primal fear of humiliation that he responds to with overwhelming aggression. This pattern has been consistent throughout Trump's political career, from his notorious reaction to Seth Meyers' roast at the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner to his ongoing feuds with various late-night hosts. But the intensity of his response to Kimmel's segment suggests the president may be growing even more sensitive to criticism as his administration faces mounting challenges. While much of the attention has focused on Trump's reaction, political observers note that the real story may be the increasingly impossible position Levitt finds herself in. "Imagine going to work every day knowing that your job is to defend statements and policies that defy rational explanation," commented one former White House press secretary who served under a different administration. "Then imagine knowing that if you fail to make those indefensible positions sound reasonable, you might become the target of your boss's legendary rage." That's Caroline Levitt's daily reality. This impossible balancing act was perfectly captured in a moment highlighted by Kimmel, where Levitt attempted to explain Trump's bizarre comments about tariffs in Canada. It's President Bonehead posted about our friends up. The audience erupted, but for Levitt, such moments represent the daily challenge of her role. How to make statements that sound like the ravings of a cartoon villain seem like reasonable policy positions from the leader of the free world. As the dust settles from this latest media confrontation, political observers note that this incident highlights the ongoing struggle within the administration to maintain message discipline in the face of increasing scrutiny and mockery. Trump's administration has always been like a chaotic reality show, where every episode is more ridiculous than the last, noted one political commentator with decades of experience covering Washington. From the hair to the tweets to the bizarre press conferences, it's like a circus on a never-ending loop. You can't help but watch, but you also can't believe what you're seeing. The incident has also raised serious questions about Levitt's future in the administration. While publicly Trump continues to express confidence in his press secretary, behind the scenes, the knives are reportedly out.